visible says best hold screen of any podcast. What's going on, everybody? I'm going to bang my mic. It's Jeff, Dirty Pool Podcast. Here we are. Today is a special day, as every day is for the Pinball Podcast. It is the 11th episode, and I am so pleased to be joined by an international pinball lover this time. I'm going to try to say your name correctly, even though we did talk about it. I had it, well, you said 98% correct last time?
98.6.
Let's see if I can bump it up one. It's Guillaume Fau.
Brilliant. You got 100%. Brilliant, man. Yes. Well done, Joe.
It is Paris Pinball Addict, known more, I would say, commonly in the States. Thank you for joining me. What time is it there?
It's actually 9 p.m. in France, in Paris. Yeah, it's not nighttime, It's very hot today.
Your lighting has got me all tricked. It looks like it's like noon over there.
No, 9 p.m., man.
Amazing. So you and I have talked more before the actual broadcast went live, probably more than any other guest. And I think that that's kind of an interesting two-parter because what I would love to dive into today, we talked about a few topics, and I kind of want to set the stage here with everybody that's joined us. The first one is, of course, your journey as a kind of like pinfluencer, which I fucking hate that name, pinball ambassador, and what it's like to become someone like that and what you would kind of talk about with people that are interested in going down that road. And the second thing that we talked about, and I think is extremely important, you work in marketing, and we talked about what can the pinball manufacturers do to make for a better state of release in terms of how to communicate new games and how to get the excitement and the news about game releases from the company to the consumer.
Right. Brilliant. Very interesting topics.
Let's dive in.
The second one. Yeah.
We'll get there. Let's start with you. When did you get into pinball?
All right. Well, first of all, Jeff, thanks for having me on your podcast. Really appreciate the opportunity. Love talking pinball, and big fan of all the content you've put over these last few months. And I think you're just it's amazing what you've done. So I've been into pinball pretty much as a fan since as long as I can remember, probably my teenage years. And as you and I have discussed, we've had some years where we left that on the side of bed because of school studies and stuff. And in my early 30s, got back into pinball, got the opportunity to buy a house, a bit of more space. I'm like, well, how about I fill it with a pinball machine? And you got one, you got two, you know how it works. And then you're like, because I'm a marketer, because I like comms, because I like visuals and sounds, I'm like, how about I do some content about this? But I appreciate what you said earlier. You made me feel like Keith Elwin for a second, but I'm just a random guy from France trying to make fun with pinball. And as we discussed, it's not always easy from afar because obviously being across the pond, you're not in direct contact with the actuality. So you need to have some relays there. And fair enough, I've got a lot of good friends in the US, but it's been a fun ride since probably 2018, I think, for the content creator on Instagram.
Oh, so I think that I'm gonna say something that I think is fairly controversial, but I think pinball needs pinfluencers and pinball ambassadors. And the reason I say that is because unlike a product or someone who's just doing lifestyle posts on Instagram, pinball is not easily accessible to the general population. It's an unknown thing. It's a niche hobby. It needs people to have a voice in order to share and spread that info to people. And I think that creates an environment where there's a responsibility for the people that talk about pinball to kind of represent it in the best format. And what are your thoughts on that? I'm also going to go turn off the dryer because it won't shut up right now. And it's my podcast. Shut up, dryer. Come on.
Right. So, you know what? I think it's interesting what you said because we need those people, I believe, like you said, to be to have the word of mouth and to be your player on the street and be like, I did play this game, or come in with me, try it. We need those ambassadors, so to speak. And I believe the brands, being in marketing, I believe brands need ambassadors. But what I try and bring to the table because of my profession is being more of an analyst. I don't try necessarily to chill for chill. When I'm super excited, trust me, I'm super excited and I'm the first one to chill. But I like the whole market analysis. I like to put things in perspective a little bit, see how brands differ from one another, see how they do things, how they could improve things. I try and bring the level of analysis that I do for my clients in PR to my favorite hobby, which is pinball. And I think that's, at least in France, I think that's pretty unique. But to your point, I think, we need people to talk about pinball because it's an old hobby, right? We can go back to the early 1930s, even to the jeu de bagatelle from the days of Louis XV and Louis XVI in France, because I'm sure you're aware of that. Pinball used to be Yeah, it used to be Bagatelle. It was founded in France back in the 17th century. So it was a game like that. Yeah. And it transported to America, and Americans being American, they decided to improve the game and put flippers. So that's why it's called pinball.
So the original wood rails were a French invention?
Yeah, so it's called pinball because it was like a wood platform with pins,
sure,
and the ball was just the pins, and like that. And the Americans brought the flippers. They're like, how about we send the ball back up? That should be fun. So the flippers come from America, but the actual woodwork and the pins come from France. So that's a funny thing. I lost track of my story. I don't even know what I got there for.
We're talking about the importance of the pinball influencers to communicating the pinball.
That's right. And it's an old game. It's a game that's very physical, tangible. It's a hobby that's expensive, that eats up a lot of space in the room. So we need people to realize in this day and age where everything is digital, everything's intangible, we need to realize that it's fun to put your freaking hands on something physical and to actually make sure that no two games is alike. And I think this is the critical point with pinball is that you play video games, it's zeros and ones in the code, obviously. So you get to the end of that, say, video game, it's over. You can have fun again, but you've seen the end of it. A pinball machine, even if you have one pinball machine in your room, you won't have two games alike. And that is mind-boggling when you come to think of it. So this is why there should be some people say, come on, wake up, play this amazing game.
This unlike any other game. Fartex is asking, so this is a good setup. So Fartex is asking, what is your job? And we talked a little bit about work and how we can speak pretty independently without any fear because our income isn't from pinball. And I think some of the stuff that we're going to say about how pinball should change in terms of its marketing process is going to be pretty blunt in the next hour or so. So why don't you, tell Fartex, let's talk about a little bit of your background. We'll talk about a little bit of mine, and then we'll dive into what we think could be improved in the pinball industry.
Sure. So I'm a PR person. I've been working in PR for more than 25 years now. I work in tech PR. So I represent brands, big brands like Dolby, like Polaroid, NVIDIA, Huawei, the telephones, big international brands. So I do PR programs for them, marketing programs, digital marketing as well. So this is I have my own company, I have an agency with about 30 people in there since more than 20 years. So this is how I get my income. So pinball really is a hobby. I do all those travels for Pinball Expo, Pinball Festival in Texas on my own expenses. I've always made sure that it's a hobby, and I want it to stay a hobby. So this is what we discussed together before. Is I think it gives us some freedom of speech that we can say the things the way we want. We don't feel obliged to have to chill anybody. So I think that's the strength that we have because we can speak genuinely. And I think at least in France, when I talk to people on those live shows that I do in France with my team, I'm like, they're like, it's genuine because I'm not trying to be sneaky or mean, not at all. I just say the things the way I see them. When I love something, I say it. I don't have any allegiance to any brand in particular. I just love pinball. I recognize that we need Stern, and granted we got Stern, so there wouldn't be pinball otherwise. That doesn't mean I have to chill everything that Stern says. I'm big friends with the European director of Stern. He knows how I feel about things, and it's always been very nice, and I want it to be kept as a hobby.
That's true. So let's... Do we dive straight into
let's
pinball
go.
Marketing to the consumer? Should we do that? All right.
Yeah, let's go.
So there have been a number of launches of pinball machines over the last, decades, but for this year has been a bumper crop. And every single company has kind of taken a slightly different approach to how they are trying to advertise their games to get people excited about it. Yep. And you and I talked about how each of these had slightly different approaches and that not all of them have really landed. And so to help with pinball people, if there are pinball marketing people that are watching this or listening, let's talk about our experience and just a little bit of transparency as well, because you talked about being a shill. I'm working with Barrels of Fun, so I just want to be transparent about that. I know that David has been very concerned about people marketing me as a shill as well. I'm happy to be very, very clear about my opinions on both the companies I'm working with and the companies that I'm not. On top of that, similar to you said with your marketing, I work at a post-production company and we do marketing for Amazon, and we work with huge brands taking their assets and making advertising campaigns for them. So the point of that is that you and I know what we're talking about when it comes to marketing. Let's talk about a company that's done a good launch? What do you think of the past? We'll talk about what? Evil Dead, Dune, Pinball Brothers with Predator, and of course, Harry Potter. Let's talk about the good and bad elements of those launches and what would be the gold standard for how a company should present a game when they have a launch release from the rumor mill to release day.
Which one do you want to start with?
Well, I mean, I would say let's pick one you think that's done the most right, and let's go there first.
I would say the one that's probably been the most interesting case study over the last 3 years. Now, you'll see why I say 3 years is JJP, Jersey Jack Pinball, because to me, it all starts with their big bang launch of Guns N' Roses, which I feel was an amazing marketing launch by Ken Cromwell, who was working there as a PR and marketing person. I think that was the first time that we had a proper showcase of a video, something that looked like a bang. Obviously, it's Guns N' Roses, but remember that video? You had the lady playing and everything. It felt like, oh my God, when pinball meets Hollywood a little bit. Obviously, I'm just far-fetching it a little bit, but it felt really different. And then you had another launch. You had Godfather, which felt like a step back, and then they came back with a bang with Harry Potter. So I think that could be an interesting to talk about JJP and that sort of wire form that happened over those last 3 launches. What do you think?
Okay. Absolutely. Sure. Let's do that. Also, of course, I can't believe I forgot King Kong. I own King Kong, by the way, so I'm surprised, which is, to me, it's pretty interesting that I feel like Elwin's latest game is kind of like off the radar in a little bit, which is wild, because I think Kong is an awesome game. And I think Stern's event was a good way of bringing the kind of marketing aspect to it, so that they didn't have to do the legwork because they knew that the people they were bringing would do it for them.
All right, so you know what? Let's start with Kong, because you're on it, and it's actually an amazing case study as well. Okay. You know the thing with Kong, that's my perception of it. There's been a lot of you're talking about the rumor mill. There was a lot of rumors over the last few months. When will the next Spike 3 come out? And people thought, Keith Elwin game, Spike 3 makes a lot of sense. Who better than Keith Elwin's game for Spike 3 to launch it? So obviously Stern knew that was not going to happen. And it was a bit of a low-key launch, but I feel it was totally assumed by them in the sense that they know what they have. They have the king, Elwin. He's probably making the best layouts of all pinball right now. He's the Pat Lauder of the 21st century. So they know what they have. They have Zombie Yeti. They got a great combo together. They know how to work. The product is good. And they also have something else. They've invested in the Stern army over the years with Michael. Name will come back, sorry. So they have him who's in charge of the Stern army at Stern, and they've built that sort of momentum where they have those Stern launches all across all around the US. And this is how, by the inside, like a Trojan horse, they go into the clubs, the bars where people meet, and they bring the game and they have that launch party. And I feel like they felt for a Keith Elwin game combined with Zombie Yeti, going through the Stern army was probably a good way to launch. Probably very efficient in terms of money cost, not too expensive. Sure. And because they knew the game was good, it would be a good word of mouth, and as a snowball effect, time after weeks, they'll be like, my gosh, it's a future classic. I think they knew what they had.
I agree. It's just, it isn't immediately there because of kind of the dizzying array of machines that are out right now. I want to roll it back quickly to Spike 3, though, because I think there's 2 really important questions about Spike 3. One, there's no communication on what the deficiencies are of Spike 2 for anybody to give a shit about Spike 3. Like, what is better about Spike 3 that the current engine can't do? Is it that there's not enough processing power for animations? Like, I've been very critical about Stern's animation and their process for disconnecting of an art package on the screen versus the playfield. Is there maybe an issue where, like, the way the animation assets are handled in Spike 2 is problematic, and that's why they're changing it for Spike 3? We don't know. So for there to be like, I don't care if a game is going to be on Spike 2 or Spike 3, because I don't know what the problem with Spike 2 is currently.
True. I've heard those things that they feel they could go farther with the animations thanks to Spike 3, and they could also animate more stuff on the playfield altogether and do more crazy things. But as you know, this is marketing 101. You don't know what you don't have, and what they'll know is when they launch Spike 3, they will make sure you crave for it and you absolutely want to have Spike 3. I actually got one of my friends in France who's on my podcast and stuff. He's a big chill for Spike 2. And whenever Spike 2 came out, he traded all his Spike 1s because he just wanted to have the new things. Some people are just genuinely interested in only the new stuff.
Why?
I don't know, because it's the shiny new stuff. For them, in their mind, it has to be the best of the best because it's the latest thing that came out. So fuck Spike. Sorry for my wording. So
No,
fuck Spike 1.
you can swear all you want on here.
I just want to have Spike 2. And I know for a fact that he will do exactly the same thing for Spike 3 when it comes out. And Stern will make sure to make us feel like, dude, if you don't have Spike 3, wow, you're outdated. You're outdated because Spike 3 can make so much more.
So don't you think it's strange that like with Insider Connect, they were starting to like build the hype for it kind of before it was released, but there's like no information about Spike 3. Now, this is a different conversation. Like, does the consumer owed anything to be told about the potential development of a new engine inside of their pinball machine? Like Stern has no obligation to be like, hey, Spike 3 is coming out and here's the new features of it and whatnot. It would be nice, but like, does the company owe anything to the consumer for that?
No, they don't. Like, let's go back to Sony back in the 80s with the Walkman. Did they owe the audience? You know what they put in a Walkman? No, but they released the Walkman and they make you feel like you need the Walkman. Right. Now, there's a fine line between not telling what's in your kitchen and also creating some buzz, some attractivity. And this is where the whole teasing campaign come from. So, and this is what those brands, to get back to the topic, have been very good at lately, is starting to tease a bit more. Because you go back 5 years ago, you barely had any teasers for upcoming games. You had maybe a trailer the day before, and then you had the reveal. Now they do teasing like weeks and weeks, even months before. So I feel they're getting the sense, they're getting the marketing 101 lessons that you need to build up the future FOMO, as we talked about. You need to build up something out of nothing.
FOMO. You said such a terrible word, and I think it's so much what Stern bases its model around. But I think what you said is really important, that I think the pinball companies are currently learning how to market to the new generation of pinball purchasers. You have to understand that the pinball people that bought machines in the 70s and 80s, et cetera, were operators. They were arcades. They were not individuals. So there was really not a whole need. They'd put out a flyer and a pamphlet, and you can see a lot of this material available on the internet, which is awesome. Some of the art and, literature involved in these advertisements to try to sell it to operators is really interesting historically. But now 70% or so of the pinball market are home players. Like now they need to tell the general consumer that to get them hyped to buy it. It's not about an operator anymore.
Yeah, and there's also the social networks that didn't exist back in the days. So now people are expecting to get content flooded to their face all the time. So if you're a company, not even a pinball company, any random company, and you don't put content online on social networks, people feel like you're gone, or something's wrong with you, or maybe you're going under. So pinball companies, just like any company, has figured out they need to use social networks. And how does that mean? They need to put content on. So they put trailers, they put teasers, they put little contests, whatever. They need to occupy the space. Otherwise, people tend to forget about them.
So now let's go back to the different companies, because every single one of these companies has kind of approached the hype and the teaser concept a little differently.
Yeah.
I mean, we could use the most recent, and I mean most recent being Predator, did 10 or so AI-generated hype trailers to try to build like hype for the game. And I feel that generating hype is a necessary part of marketing, but you tell me, because that's more your side of it.
Yeah, so you have to go back to the roots of each and every company we're talking about. So we're talking about Pinball Brothers. First of all, they're in Europe. They're not on the main pinball territory. So that's not a forte, obviously. That's a weakness, so to speak, in terms of marketing. So they have to overcome this first of all. So not being an American company means they need to build up the trust. And their last pins, whether it's been ABBA, whether it's been Queen, Alien, we know it's a redo of Highway Pinball. The last two pinball machines have not been absolutely amazing. So if you're an American customer, are you really gonna buy a pinball machine coming from Europe? You don't even know where it is and stuff like that. So what they did is they're brilliant. They're like, all right, we figured ABBA is not working. Queen was like so-so. Alien is Alien. Oh, Alien kind of worked because it's Alien. So we need a dream thing. Predator is a dream thing. So first things first, they had to put all their marketing and salespeople to secure the license, the IP. That was probably the hardest thing to do.
Which is the same IP team as Alien. I had Daniel on the podcast, and he talked. It's the same connections, and he also sneaked out that the future pins that they're producing are also additional '80s kind of action themed pins. So they've dialed into their market, and I think that that's smart. But we're talking like how do you get people hyped on it now? Like, okay,
Yeah.
Predator's a pretty strong IP, in my opinion. Some people don't give a shit, and that's fine. I mean, it's pinball themes are subjective. They're a skin, but continue.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not a dream theme, but it's definitely a thing you need to acknowledge. It needs to be reckoned with because it's a marquee action movie with Schwarzy of the 80s. So it is what it is. So I think they had the first step right. And now they're like, how can we get that FOMO, that how can we build up the trust for people overseas to buy our games from Europe? This is how they got into that crazy trailer campaign. And, they applied the basics. They're like, all right, we got maybe 6 months to launch. Let's have a new trailer every month or every 3 weeks or so. And then went through their sheet. It's very basic. The problem was that the other companies like Stern and JJP had some home runs in King Kong and Harry Potter and other things. So they have to battle this out. And this is the one thing that I don't get, because yes, there are a lot of pinball companies. We talked about it, but in the grand scheme of things, we're just still talking about only 12 to 15 companies in the whole world. I mean, they know each other. Can't they just, when are you launching your next game? Okay, how about you doing April? All right, so I'm not going to launch mine until September. I understand there's jobs at stake and stuff, but why mess up your launch when you're in the middle of freaking King Kong versus Harry Potter? Yeah. This is wild. This is
fighting in between companies is not beneficial for the hobby at all. I noticed that Spooky moved their normal broadcast date of Thursday onto Friday at the exact same time that Barrels was doing Carl's Dune pinball play launch, and then offered a free game to get people to watch on it. Why? Like, are you're trying to lower the viewership on another company's game so that people don't buy it? Like, this is not the move.
Yeah, but Jeff, absolutely, and especially if you're in Spooky's shoes, you see this new company Barrels come in with two really good games in Labrynth and Dune. Like for a new company to have these kind of games, I'll tell you what, Spooky Pinball 10 years ago, they weren't making those kind of games. So obviously, if you're Spooky, you're like, well, they're definitely a direct competitor. They're taking our spot as the new challenger to the Sterns and JJPs of the world. So you're concerned. So if there's a stream with Carl, who's one of the best players in the world, you're like, shit, we don't want people to get excited about Dune too much. How can we make? All right, let's just give out a free game. That will make sure we get people around. So yeah, it's a tactic, of course. That's guerrilla marketing.
Like target the bigger companies. Do people really just want two big pinball companies? Like there needs to be more than just Jersey Jack and Stern Pinball in the pinball landscape. And to your point about how Pinball Brothers' first couple of games, we're talking about Queen and ABBA, not being amazing hits in terms of players liking them, to be straightforward, and also for them to have kind of some manufacturing issues. Like I know a lot of operators had issues keeping those games up and running. So you're talking about building both brand like confidence and also to make sure that new people are not afraid to buy from smaller companies. If nobody's buying pinball machines from these small companies, they're going to go away. And you're not going to get Predator. You're not going to get Dune because JJP and Stern are not going to take those IPs on. These other companies are in a position to take on the different types of IPs that the major companies or major pinball manufacturers won't do. So like, for people that want to shit on all these other companies and all these games that they're, I didn't want Predator, like ask yourself, like, well, would you rather have no Predator?
Yeah. But do you remember there was this Joe Kamenko post like a couple of years ago because Stern was trying to get a Harry Potter and they, it was, and Joe Kamenko had that post like, the fuck it, JJP got it, good luck to you and stuff like that. But to me, it was still a surprise that a company like Pinball Brothers had Predator. I didn't expect them to do that. I thought it was a good lesson learned. Like, okay, we need to have a dream theme, so to speak. If you want to make sales, we're not going to sell with Abbas and Queens. So they got that right, but still, obviously, there was those leaks on the day of the launch, so there was not even some gameplay videos. Why can't they just bring a Carl or a Jack Danger or someone like that over? It's just a plane ticket to fly to Europe and have the guy in the factory with a nice background and show in the best way of the world how you play a freaking good game. This is how you get people excited. Yes. Imagine Carl or Jack playing like, oh my gosh, it's so good, I can do this and that. People will be like, if Jack or Carl is having fun, I want that game. This is what you guys have been doing with Barrels and Dune.
Dude, Kaneda, which I'm going to say that word here on the podcast, Kaneda himself said the exact same thing. They said he could have just bought a ticket for me to go over there to Pinball Brothers in Sweden and play the game. And there you have at least somebody that has some sort of pull or followership that can play pinball to a better level than Daniel. Sorry, Daniel, if you're watching this. he said himself in the gameplay video, he's like, I'm not a very good pinball player. And as much as I appreciate that kind of honesty, you and I both agreed you have one chance to show off the game that you're going to present.
So Jeff, funny story. Last week in Paris, there was the Paris International Air Show, where we have like the equivalent of your, all those. We had actually an F-35 Lightning and stuff like that.
My dad was an A-10 pilot, so I'm familiar.
Whoa, all right, we'll have to chat about this later. So we had the Paris International Air Show, and all those warplanes were flying over Sleet. Imagine you have like your rubbish pilots like, sorry guys, I'm on the plane. I can't do much with the plane, but I'm still going to try and show you what the F-35 can do. I can't do much because I can't. So I'm sorry, I'm going to land. This is exactly the same. You need to put the best pilots in the best planes to showcase what they can do. You need to put some great, entertaining players. So that's why I wouldn't put Kaneda. He might be polarizing and entertaining. He's not a great player. You want a guy like Carl or Jack who can talk and can actually play well, and make sure you see everything about the game and makes you want to get that. I don't get why a company like EPC, European Pinball Company who owns Pinball Brothers, are like, we just buy a plane ticket and it will make our game shine in the best of light. This is easy.
Yeah, you're looking at maybe $1,000 plus housing, $2,000 worth of an investment to sell many units of the game. Like, this is like mind-blowing that this cost seems insurmountable from a small pinball company, when the reality is that the pinball people that are pinball influencers, it's a collaborative experience, right? Like, they want to play the latest game. They want people to watch their stream because they have it on there. And the companies that are making this game want that to happen because it's advertisement for their game. What are they doing? Why? Why is this not happening every release?
Jeff, no idea. And year after year after year, you see the same mistakes being made or the same things not being made, and you don't understand why. So something interesting, switching to Stern, you've seen Stern over the last couple of years flying some American pinfluencers from where they are in the US to the Stern offices in Chicago to see the new game. So they haven't extended that to international. So I've been officially invited by Zach Sharp, but they're not to the point where they would pay me a ticket. But I appreciate the fact that now they send emails to people who have like a bit of a fellowship and be like, do you want to come and see our launch in the first things first, so you can tell your followers what you've seen. So that's a nice step. But you're like, gosh, that's 2025, man. We've been doing that with brands for decades. And it's like pinball is just coming out of the ice and like, oh yeah, we can do that. We can use those people and stuff. Still, they're not using us enough. I feel we could do a lot more for those brands' visibilities.
I mean, I agree. Mostly just because I would love to play new games, but I think that companies like Stern and Jersey Jack are kind of like locked in their old habits of how they handle the release of pinball machines. And new companies are just like falling into those habits instead of taking the opportunity to look at the landscape. You said a really important word when we were talking earlier about getting market research. Like, how hard is it to go and get a nice snapshot of what pinball people want and then translate that into an effective marketing campaign? It's not expensive. It doesn't take a lot. There's plenty of people to be able to, you can hire someone to do this job for you. If you can hire someone to work on your pinball machines, you can hire someone to do marketing for them.
You've probably seen the series Mad Men, this comes agency in the 1950s in the US. This is the whole focus group things, market research, going on the street and just ask people plainly, what do you want, has been done since the inception of times. They were doing that obviously in marketing in the 1950s. They could even use interns to go out there in Chicago and be like, all right, so we're a pinball manufacturing company. You know pinball? Yeah, all right. Oh, you've played Medieval Madness? Okay, that's a long time ago. What would be your top 10 themes? What do you want? Oh, you want a Karate Kid? Or you want a Harry Potter? Or you want this or that? All right. And then you go to your boss and like, you know what? 70% of the people said they want Karate Kid. Imagine. Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Well, yeah, let's make a game, because people buy themes. You can have the greatest pinball machine ever built. If the theme doesn't appeal to you anymore, in 2025, you're not going to sell. This is not the 80s and the 90s anymore, when a no theme could sell. You can't reproduce Funhouse. You can't have Attack from Mars again. I mean, you can have it once, but that would be the exception. 99% of the time, if you don't have a theme, you're not going to sell in this day and age. So why don't you go on the street and get the dream theme that people want and make those games?
So this is where you and I kind of differ a little bit here. And we talked about the difference between like tournament players versus, which I'm not a tournament player. I realized that I literally played in a tournament yesterday, but that's not like my thing. I think that the theme is important as a skin to the game, but that the rules and how the shots like feel on the game is more important. But to you, that experience of being drawn into that world under glass is more of importance to you.
Let me rephrase then. Let me rephrase. Yes.
I don't think you're wrong.
No, the whole world in the glass thing for me is the most important. But I agree with you. We need to have the whole combo. We need the rules, we need the audio, we need the call-outs, we need the animation. Everything needs to work. And it's as complex as it's ever been. So for a game to be a great game in this day and age, it's very hard. It's really hard. Talk about Godzilla. They were able to get the rules, the code, the animations, the world in the glass, everything. But it doesn't happen so often. I like what they've done with Dune. I like it. I like what they've done with Dune. I know the code is improving. I think the world in the glass is there. This theme is there. But where I said I wanted to rephrase is, we're talking about focus groups on the streets. Those guys, they don't know nothing about rules and stuff. They just want to be attracted to a machine, and they will only be attracted to a theme they know. Why did Terminator 2 work in the first place? Because they saw Schwarzy on the trend slide, so they got attracted to play this game. They didn't even know what the rules were. They probably didn't know how to play it, but they came to this because it was Schwarzy. They got to Funhouse because they saw Rudy. It's like, what is that freaky little puppet? So for guys like you and I who play pinball a lot, we need those rules. We need the whole thing, because I would say we're in the upper echelon in the sense that we know pinball, but any random people in the street, which is 99% of the population who doesn't care about pinball, what will have them attracted to a machine is something they can recognize, acknowledge, something they know. So it's a theme.
All right, so we're looking at multiple stages of attractiveness of being sucked into a game, right? So you've got your top layer of like, is the IP interesting? Is the art package drawing you in to actually walk up to the game? And then is the game going to keep you interested by having rules and shots that have a feel and a flow that make you want to continue to play it, whether that be for a short time in an arcade or a long time in a permanent home game? I think that's like that and the game being fun. I know Keith Elwin's on record of saying that like fun is every design decision that he makes is based around, is it fun? Is the game fun? Like he got rid of cycling inlanes mini games, you know, for like inlane bonus because it's too confusing for new players. They don't know to move it, and it's too easy for advanced players. So it doesn't fit either niches. So none of his games have it. And I think that's a really interesting approach to that. To reel it back though to marketing, right? Since you work in marketing, a pinball company has come to you and is like, hey, we have a new IP. We're going to make, I don't know, Poo Poo Banana Butt, the pinball machine. And we need you to help us launch Poo Poo Banana Butt. What does the campaign look like to you? How do you build the initial hype for it? How do you give a honest experience of what the game is like? You know, you talked about involving an influencer or having someone play the game. What does the release timeline and package look like for a properly released game?
Yeah. So actually another great case study to answer your question is actually Barrels. The way they promoted secretly their company for about a year or even more than a year before revealing themselves and launching obviously Labrynth was to me is a great case study. Do you remember how it was? Like for about a year and a half, they would go on trade shows and they would leave some cards saying in the essence of something fun is coming out. So they would implying that a new pinball company was coming, but didn't reveal the name, didn't say what it was. So I think that was a great way because all of us were kind of intrigued, you know, like, wow, something's just brewing in the background, but we have no idea what it is. So I think that was a very healthy, no cost kind of teasing about a new company launching something. And then they launched Labrynth, which was very interesting because they put everything all together in the first place. Usually when a young company starts, they go through the growing pains. This will work, but this won't work. Everything worked. They had a theme that was something we acknowledged. They had a world in a glass. They had an amazing topper, that means all the artifacts around the game were already available. The crazy shooter knob was available. The topper was available. They had a great booth at Pinball Expo. They had all the people from Barrels had the t-shirts. They were very corporate, very nice and friendly, but very corporate in the sense that they were dressed in Barrels of Fun. It looked like a company who belonged. It looked like a company who'd been on the map for about 5 or 10 years. So to get back to Spooky, it took Spooky 10 years to get to that level of respectability. Those guys at Barrels of Fun, they got that respectability on that trade show on D-Day, which was amazing. And I remember talking to my guys and also to guys from Stern and GP. They were like, so what's that? What's that company? Have you seen Labrynth? I think, oh my gosh, it looks amazing. Oh, I got to go and see it. All the guys from Stern and JJP wanted to go and convey to the booth to have a look because they were impressed. This was a way to launch a company and a game that was unheard of. We had never seen that before. But to get back to your point, to the timeline obviously is critical. So I would get back to what I said earlier. I would ring my 12 co-marketing people in the other 12 companies like, guys, when are you launching your next game? Don't need to tell me what your next game is. When are you launching it? April, September? You usually launch in September. Are you doing this again? Okay. I would have a fairly correct view of the panorama for the year ahead, and I will try and be in a spot on the agenda where it's empty, where it's nobody's talking about pinball.
So step one is communicate with the other pinball manufacturers to try to find a release window that doesn't interfere with anybody else.
Of course. Remember a year and a half ago, it was Texas Pinball Festival, I think 2024, 7 games were launched during TPF. 7.
Yeah, not helpful. But do you think that those companies are going to communicate that to each other?
Well, they should, because say you're one of
those 7
Should is different
than will they.
Yeah, I know. No, but this is just about good sense. I mean, you go to TPF and you've prepared your launch and you see 6 other companies launching their own game, and maybe there's better games than yours, and you're stuck, and you're like, and then you got 3 months where nothing's happening between April and June, because this is what happened. It was completely empty until the summer.
Sure.
So why don't you use that window when you can be the lone rat swimming and every eyes is on you?
As a follow-up to that, I will say maybe part 1A, don't be afraid to delay your game. We see this with the software industry all the time. Game companies have, I mean, look at GTA 6 or whatever that's coming out. There's so many game companies that were just like, the release date dropped and they were like, fuck this, like we're pushing our game a month or two because we're not going to try to release this when everybody's going to want this new thing. So, okay. So you're saying step one for transparent pinball marketing release is communicate with other sellers and also don't be afraid to delay your game if it steps on another release.
But look at Stern, what they're doing, they're delaying their codes. That is crazy because Stern decides to have 3 or 4 launches per year, no less, no more. And so they will go through their agenda no matter what.
So did you say Stern's delaying their code?
Well, they launch games with code in 0.83, 84, 86. So
for sure. I think Stern's major thing is to delay the code for as long as possible.
Yeah, but that's a problem. That is a problem because if Stern was a company in the 80s, they existed, but I mean, the Stern that we know now.
Not the modern version of Stern, for sure.
They would not release a game until code is 1.00. That would not be the case. Back in the days, those Addams Family, Twilight Zone, all those games we love, it was almost as ready. The upgrades were...
You can't update ROMs as easy as you can a software update over Wi-Fi or plop out an SD card and update it.
Yeah, but the problem is we consumers and players, we take the grief for that because they can leverage the technology knowing they can upgrade anytime, and so they're delaying their upgrades. And you buy a game for 14 grand knowing you won't have the full version of code 1.0 until a year. I know guys who've sold their game 3 times in a year. I know guys who never have a 1.0 code from Stern because they trade their games every 3 months.
Right.
And they're always in code 0. So that's another problem. So to get back to the discussion.
So step 2. So step 1 is to try to find a good release time and a window for your game to come out and to not be afraid to move it to a successful release date.
Yeah. Second thing would be once you have your IP confirmed license, why don't you communicate about it? Why don't you create some engagement? Say I've got Predator, okay? I know I've got Predator. It's not a secret. It shouldn't be a secret. I know there's other companies are going to launch other games. I want to make sure that they feel, oh my gosh, I want Predator because that's my dream theme. So I'm not going to buy Harry Potter and Kong because I'm waiting for Predator. So why wait to reveal that your game is this one? Because companies never say the game. They don't even say a new game is going to come, but you only know basically a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks before that it's actually going to be Predator or so. All right.
That's a fascinating question. Why is this information secret? It's not like they're going to. It's not like they're going to say it and someone's going to be like, "Oh, surprise! I'm going to buy it." Like that person's already going to make that decision as soon as they know what the IP is. It's not like springing it on them is going to change their mind.
Exactly, but look, Jeff, look at Hollywood. They tease their films a year before. You know a year before that Star Wars is coming next summer. You know next year Jurassic Park is coming. You have a 6-second trailer that Jurassic Park coming next year. So we're excited. We get excited. So why don't you say, our next game is Predator with a fancy 10-second trailer, and then nothing for 6 months. Nothing. You just wait till the day. But people know you're coming with Predator, and they're excited by your brand. Oh my gosh, this is the company that's got Predator. I can't wait to see it. But then you shut up for 6 months. You don't do a trailer every month because you just start to dilute the interest. With every new trailer, you try to add another 10 seconds, and people are like, oh, did you see that? Oh, I'm not sure. Why'd you do that? Why do you give people ammo to criticize your game?
I love this. All right. So step 1, release it. Don't be afraid to move it. Step 2, you do not need to hide your IP as if it is some secret code or secret like trademark thing. Like you can tell people what game you're making.
And especially if it's it's a dream theme, leverage it. Be proud of it. Be proud to announce you got better or something else.
Which every game that people work on, especially now that I'm recently working at Barrels, like I totally care. I want everybody that plays Dune to be like, this is the coolest thing that I've ever played, or that I'm hearing at least. Like people that work on the games are proud of them and they really are excited to be working on them. Even if they're themes they don't care about, they still want to make a great game. So this whole illusion that people are trying to make you mad as a pinball person by sabotaging your pinball dreams, by making your favorite theme terrible is just like, it's got to go. Step 3. What is step 3?
Step 3 is D-Day. It's a bang. You need to have the killer video. You need to have the killer marketing materials, the killer flyers. You need to inund the space, all the social networks, the whole planet, knowing you got the best game that's ever been made.
All right, break down step 3 a little bit more, because marketing materials could mean I mean, you could send out an EPK, you could send out an electronic press kit to specific streamers. You could build a promo video of a different side. You can do a talking heads thing like Jersey Jack did.
Of this.
Not like insanely, but we're trying to. I want to make a framework of like, I want pinball manufacturers to jump to this part of this podcast and be like, hey, you know what? This is a good thing to hear, and this could help change how games are mentioned and talked about.
I appreciate it, Jeff. So of course, going with the NDA thing and getting your top influencer, so to speak, to have those informations ahead of time under NDA so that everything is released on their websites and their social networks on D-Days mandatory. They're actually doing this now. Stern's doing this. I was contacted by Pinball Brothers a few weeks before to get the materials, like the guys like Nap Arcade. We got that.
Same. They sent out a Google Drive with a bunch of materials in it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's still done in a way that's not very exclusive. You don't feel like you have access to amazing, outstanding materials. In my work, when I work for NVIDIA, when there's a new graphics board, a new GTX or whatever, I make sure under NDA to brief completely the journalist so he has his article and his review by the new GTX ready for D-Day. And when D-Day comes, he can publish it and it's as detailed as possible. Except for Pinball News and Nap Arcade as well. Who have access maybe to some interviews and stuff. I don't know. I feel like most people don't. So it's more like a case of, oh, we did it. Yeah, we shipped a few images to everybody. That's done. So it's a bit amateur hour, a little bit. So that can be done in a much better way to ignite your top 12, 15 guys and make sure they have the in-depth article ready with the nice HD photos that put your game in the best of light. So that's something to do. You also want to set up those interviews so that those who are able to show some video content can ahead of time. We saw that with Harry Potter with Retro Ralph. He did a very nice featurette, but I feel like he was sponsorized a little bit by JJP. I don't know. It felt a bit like that, but the content was really good.
We should talk about the JJP one at the end, because I think that's a really good use case of things that were done good and things that were not so great.
Right, but in terms of the look of it, it looked professional. It looked like it's a great thing for JJP. So you'd want those content creators to have access to that. When you see Stern flying people in the US, only in the US, to the Stern factory, it looks like Bandcamp a little bit. They got their backpack, they take some pictures. You got a few factory. It's great, but it looks a bit amateurish. You can do much better than that, a bit more pro. So. The whole point is that the
amount of effort to go from amateur to looking pro in terms of promo material stuff is like not a lot. It is a very small step for a graphics package and, you know, gameplay footage and stuff. Like the kit that needs to be put together to make a pinball machine look and be amazing for marketing materials is not big.
No, it's not big. And to be fair, they've stepped up their game over the years. It's not where it should be, I believe, but it's still much better than it was even 5 years ago. So I think those companies are on the right way, definitely. And again, you talk about the new companies doing some things. I feel like companies like Barrels, with the way they've promoted themselves in the first place, have influxed a bit of new energy to the old timers. Like, oh wow, look what they do. It's a bit different. Like you can go outside of the boundaries. You can think outside the box, as we say in marketing. So also another thing, those brands have started to have proper marketing directors, whether it's Zach Sharp at Stern, whether it used to be Ken Cromwell until recently at JJP. This wasn't the case a few years ago. They're staffing up their company with marketing people a bit more. Those guys know how it works, and they're bringing those things.
They also have the money to do that, and the margins for pinball machines for smaller companies do not leave that much of a room for that kind of budget. But the people that are running the companies are just having to do the extra legwork for it. But this is like hopefully the information for that. On that note, Audio Enslaved says the Predator gameplay video with commentary was horrible, and I'm sure the guy commentating was exciting, but man, it sounded like he was greening out and not interested. That's Daniel. That's the CEO of Pinball Brothers playing that game. And that's what's crazy is that like not only is like that not either communicated, but also it just shows that like, why are you doing this? He self-acknowledged he's not a great pinball player. And as much as I understand culturally that delivery is like a little more mellow, that's more of a cultural thing instead of a marketing thing. But that's been criticized by a lot of people that gameplay video is just like too chill. It's like Netflix and chill of pinball gameplay. And it needs to be a little bit like you're selling a product. You know?
And I don't think it gives justice to a pinball company to have the CEO play on the game. I know Stern's doing that with Gary, but it's for fun. And we all know Gary's for fun when he puts his hands on the game and they do a couple of pictures. But Gary is not selling the game for you. When you're with Pinball Brothers and you're a young company, you're building that trust because you're overseas, it's complicated. And you have your own CEO who is not even a native English people trying to start talking English and he plays at the same time. It's more complex. They bring some difficulties to themselves that they didn't need to.
So step 3 is to build marketing materials and actually have a good presentation of the product that you are selling, right?
Yes, and also very important that everything is launched on D-Day, not the day before, 3 days before, 1 day after, because you feel like things are leaking. You don't know if it's leaking from the inside or the outside, but all these companies, there's some leaks right now. It's like, it's amazing. Whether it's JJP, Stern, Pinball Brothers, everywhere, you got a leak. It's like,
coordinated launch.
Yeah, I mean, I remember visiting Stern and seeing that room and it was like forbidden to go inside. And it was the room where they were starting to have the white woods of the new project. So it's easy to shut a door and not leak it. It's not Keith Allen's going to leak his own game. So you feel they're coordinating sometimes, not always, some leaks because they feel it's going to give them the edge. It's actually the opposite. They're shooting themselves in the foot. So
you don't need to do a factory tour to do a launch either. So if you're worried about leaking material, like do it digitally. You do not have to invite streamers to your factory. It's great to have that kind of transparency and give tours and whatnot. But if you're worried about leaking whitewoods of new potential projects or whatever, like don't do that then.
Don't do that. No, the one thing that puzzles me is I feel those companies are struggling to have a proper reveal on each hour of D-Day. You know it's coming on the 18th of June, but somehow on the 17th at 4 p.m. you have all the blurry pictures, and it happens all the time. So I don't understand that. And
dude, what about Jack's announcement of Harry Potter at fucking TPF? Like, what the fuck?
So
we all know it's Harry Potter.
Yeah, but you know what? He had a pass on that. Not the way he did it, but everyone wanted Harry Potter. This was probably the ultimate dream theme that we never thought we'd have because we all know the story with J.K. Rowling's not wanting to blah, blah, blah. So even if you were standing up on a table and sing it in the most plain voice, it still would sell. People are like, oh my freaking God, it's actually coming. And from JJP, he had it was a home run, regardless of how he said it.
But if you're going to try to do a coordinated launch, like involve that part in it. You can easily say like, hey, like, yes, everybody knows Harry Potter. We're working on it. And be like, he was like, I can't wait to see it. Like save your money or whatever he said. It was just, there was something so strange about it that like,
I know, I remember.
Coordinated.
You know something, Jeff? That's a question that I want to ask, Ken Cromwell left JJP, but whenever I see him next, probably at Expo, I want to ask him about that. I will tell him this, Ken, You were at JJP when Jack did this, sort of came out and then say this. How did you react as the PR person? Because I heard that wasn't planned at all. He just came out of his own way and just said it. And he said some things like, yeah, you will see, did you like Wizard of Oz? It will be exactly like that as much. So we all thought it was going to be a wide body because he promised so many things in it. And I mean, the game looks amazing. Don't get me wrong, but he just said so much things. I wonder on the PR standpoint, how did they do the damage control after this? Like, Jack, what happened? We told you not to say it, and you did, and we're not ready.
I don't think they were worried just based on the fact that it's Harry Potter. They were just like, the game's going to have its own. It's going to have its own marketing legs based on word of mouth, and at that point, they just don't give a shit.
Absolutely.
All right, so what are we? Part 4, part 5. All right, so we've announced a marketing campaign. What's step 5?
Yeah, so now the game's out, all the marketing materials on the social networks, everybody knows, and now people are just going to go blah, 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 blah. I love it, I hate it, it's great, it's horrible. Okay, now you can't control that. And you have to stick to your guns, because you're always going to have the haters, the naysayers. You have to trust that you have an amazing product, because you've worked for this for like a year or two, okay? So now you have to it's the post-launch. You need to make sure that this game goes in the hands of the people that will give justice to it. So you want Carl, you want Jack Danger, you want the guys that will make it look or play even better than it actually is, because those guys are fun, they're entertaining, we know they play well, and they can get the most out of the game. In 30 minutes, they will get you to some levels that average Joe on the street can't even get you to, so you won't get excited. Make sure this game shines in the bright light. That's what
Audio Enslaved also said, he mentioned Joel and Jared from Flipping Out. I think it's also good to give it to streamers that are also distributors. Like, why would you not want someone who's streaming it that can actually sell the game immediately if people are interested in it?
True. I mean, they're doing a great job. I mean, it's good.
I mean, not to plug them. I'm just saying, like, if you want someone to sell your game, it would be convenient if the person that's showing it off could also have the ability to sell it in case people are interested. Yeah, just on the basis of actually moving units. All right, so don't fucking shy on supporting the game post-launch. You need to continue that momentum after you've released an amazing press kit, after you've delivered the game to people that are going to show it off in its best light. Do we talk about code updates now? Like, what's step 6?
Yeah, so the code is a problem in itself, because as we've talked previously, companies, they just throw their games out there and the code is not ready. So it's deceptive. People are like, Wizard mode's not coded, the audio is not synced up. So
wouldn't step 1 kind of resolve some of this though? Because if they're not trying to rush their game out and they know that they have a window that other games aren't going to step on, doesn't that give a company the potential to plan to have the code at a certain state for launch date?
It should be, but I do believe that the whole code issue should actually be addressed. Look at JJP. When the game comes out, it's as close as possible to 1.0. You're usually on 90.93, 94. So what you see is not exactly what you're going to get, but as close to what you're going to get. And that is satisfying. And like we said, although it was the time of the EPROMs, this is how the Bally Williams games used to be. You had what you had. But Stern has launched that sort of habit of, we're getting the habit of not having a finished product when the game's launched. And we all know that it's going to be deceptive. This is going to lead to critics. Look at Xmen. Xmen is an amazing layout by Jack Danger. One of the most innovative and creative layouts of the last 10 years, I believe. Jack is an amazing designer. But the game has been killed so far, by what the code was. And of course, so last week they decided to take it again. It's going to be much better. And I've heard people who've played the new code, they're like, oh my gosh, it's a great improvement. But I'm not going to say it's too late. It's never too late. You can have a second or a third career. But why mess up your first launch? We said earlier, you have one chance to make one good first impression. Why don't you do that? Why don't you just kill a great layout with a code that's not ready? I don't get it.
They're abusing the consumer faith that the game will get there eventually, and then pushing their FOMO process where people have to buy the game in their mind because they believe that they'll be missing out on something. Joe brought up a really good point here. Joe the Dragon says that they need to get it out there for more wide testing. I mean, like, software has the ability of doing a beta launch where they can put out hundred thousands of versions of the software, or to give that version of that software to people to find out where the problems are. Pinball machines is a 400-pound dead piece of weight. It's a little harder to do that. Oh, damn it. There's ads coming. Hold on. Silly alarm sound. We got 2 minutes until there's ads. Ew, ads. So how do you get the game properly play tested by a wider audience without getting the hate that your game is unfinished or whatever?
Yeah, so that's a very critical question, because back in the days, again, getting back to the 80s and 90s, in Chicago, people like Pat Lauder and Joe DeMar and Larry DeMar, they would put the games in a few arcades and they will see how people react. I know a famous story from Pat Lauder. He said, we were testing Funhouse. We think we had a hit, but we were not sure at all, because it was very innovative. You had the first animatronics thing. They put it in one arcade for a Saturday, and Larry DeMar and Pat Lauder were just sat in the background, and they just saw people, girls and boys, coming and be like, oh, what's that head? Oh, spooky, that's freaky. And they would all be attracted to look at it. They wouldn't necessarily put a coin in it, but they would all come across and look at it. And you know what? Pat Lauder turned to Larry DeMar and said, dude, we got a hit. They knew it because they field tested it.
That's an amazing story, but you can't do that now. If somebody put a game in an arcade that was like a secret, it would be all over the goddamn internet in like minutes. Yes. So how can someone play test it without like exposing the reality of what the code is in that current state?
So what you want to do is, if I were that company, because this is what you asked me earlier, I would call Carl and I would call Jack. Let's get with these two guys. We know they're great players. I'll be like, guys, I'm gonna fly you over. You're gonna sign an NDA. You can't take any pictures. You have to leave your phone at the entrance. And I'm gonna pay you. And I want you to freaking test that game to the end of it. And I want you to tell me everything that's right or wrong. This is what kind of they do. But the problem is they do it in-house with people who are in the house. Like at Stern, Keith will call Brian Eddy, who's going to call John Borg, be like, and they're all like, oh, it's a great game. Oh, maybe I would do that, which is great. It's fantastic. But how about
you got to get out of the bubble. The filter of internal team feedback is not like someone who's outside of that company is not going to be afraid to say something that could be potentially hurtful to someone's feelings, or they may just see something that you just aren't aware of because you've been heads down in the development of it.
Yeah, and also because eventually it's a product that needs to be sold. So you need to have someone who's a total outsider and see how he reacts to something shiny and new that's presented in front of him. Because if you're John Borg and Brian Eddy and you've already been called up on 3 times or 4 times the last 2 weeks to check if the ramp is working, you're like, I know he's working on the new Metallica, I know it. But if you're Johnny Good and you're just a random player and we're like, ta-da! You sign an NDA and you don't have your camera be like, ta-da! And you get, oh, or you're like, okay. You can see immediately by the behavior, the non-verbal language, if he's attracted, like when he was attracted to Funhouse. Those guys didn't play Funhouse, but Larry DeMar and Pat Lauder knew they had a hit just by the way people's eyes reacted to Rudy, like, oh. Even what those who were spooked were like, we got a hit because the way they reacted. You need outsiders for that.
So Joe also says that you got to test it with non-pro players as well. I think that's less of an issue just because the people that are developing pinball machines, they're not necessarily the best pinball players. I know that you want to believe that every single person that works at a pinball company is like the top 100 IFPA. Yeah. That ain't the case. Look at Pinball Brothers as a perfect example. Daniel, the CEO, is the one that played the gameplay for Predator. That is an average player. Sorry, Daniel.
Yeah.
It's just that's the reality. So it's easier to have access to players that are average than it is players that are like aliens like Carl. Who's mean to me, by the way. He was mean to me when he came over and played Attack from Mars. He was a big jerk. And he's such a sweetheart, but something about being on the stream, he just razzed me left and right. But it worked. We got to rule the universe 4 times in one game. So proof's in the pudding, you know. That man is an absolute maniac.
Yeah, well, that's, I think the hobby is glad that we got guys like that who can not only play well, but explain well.
Yeah. Carl is an incredible resource to every pinball manufacturer. And it's a shame that, like you said, it's people like Carl. And it's not just Carl. There's plenty of players that are really good, that have good streams that would be excellent like platforms for this opportunity, right? And I think that the way you frame this out is so clear and obvious that I hope that any pinball manufacturer that is watching this video even takes a small amount of this process to heart and maybe changes how the pinball release process is done.
You know what? It's not complicated, and we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. You just have to look at any launch of any product that's mainstream and see how those guys do it, and just apply those rules. It's just again, it's basic. It's very basic. It's like
basic
we know
to
we
you
have a
because you
niche.
work in marketing.
Yeah, but it's maybe the fact that our hobby is a niche hobby, and they make it niche marketing as well, trying to do things a bit different. But again, it's more like in French we say du bon sens. I'm trying to find the translation. Just do the things how it's supposed to be. Like, you don't want to overflood in the days before. You want to make sure there's no leaks. You want to make sure the right people have the game. You want to make sure your code is ready. Just basic stuff, man. Just don't give ammunition to people to be like, I told you, and look, and this and that. This is what's happening. There's too many naysayers, but they have the ammunition to be naysayers because we feed them anyway.
No, I mean, it's true. But also, like, you say, like, just, do the NDA, it's easy, blah, blah, blah. But, like, that retailer broke the NDA by releasing that footage of Pinball Brothers, of Predator without permission. Like, what are they going to do? Sue them? Like, that doesn't help anybody. And it's not like you want to start that kind of, like,
but that's bad. That's bad. Actually, the word I was trying to use is common sense. You need common sense. Sorry, I was looking for that word. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about, you're a distributor, so you're official. And you actually leak the game. It's just, there should be a penalty for it. You can't just let it go.
I mean, I would not give that distributor access to the game in the future. But then, okay, now you're losing whatever potential sales that distributor would do. That's just, I should probably know this, but that distributor, if they didn't know that was okay, like if they thought it was okay for them to release the footage, that's different. But if they release that footage, like with the intention of trying to get extra hype for their particular company so that they could sell it, like they've done a disservice to both Pinball Brothers and their own business. Like, that's fucked. They screwed up huge.
Yeah.
And now Pinball Brothers has to make excuses for it.
Exactly. Plus, what they did was like to release it the day before, so it's irrelevant. It's not like they're gonna get all the sales. It's the day before, so it's a moot point. Why do you do that? I don't get it. So all this tells me one thing: those companies are progressing. They're on the right path to becoming professional, but it's still a little bit amateur hour in terms of marketing. They can do so many things much better if they had just common sense. Talk to people on the street, what they want, have people test it before, just make it work, make your launch a success. It's not complicated. But then again, you see sometimes a great Harry Potter launch, and I think everybody agree that it's amazing. But one thing about Harry Potter.
Let's talk about Harry Potter. Let's talk about Retro Rouse video and the launch for Harry Potter.
The thing about Harry Potter, and I'll start with that, is the game has been sent to the content creators, so they're achieving it. We know that. They've received the game. So they're like, of course they're going to say, now the real deal comes from JJP. People like you and I, people who play games, are going to get those games and be like, okay, this is what I really think about the game. And now we're getting to phase 2 where the real feedback on JJP is going to come out. Is it really a good game? Is it? No. Honestly, I got a good feel about that game. It usually doesn't take me.
I've played it. Have you played it yet?
I haven't played it. What's your take on it?
I've played 2 games on it over 5 minutes on tilt. And it's congested in the back. It's pretty minimal layout for a Jersey Jack game, but it flows really well. And there's a lot going on with ball paths in a way that make it feel really exciting. I think a lot of people have complaints on the code. I'm not getting one, so I'm not going to be able to go deeper into that. Like, if it's in league, I will play it, but I think it's going to be one of their best games. It's fun, and it's fun like Elton John was in terms of how like flowy it is. And it has so much Harry Potter stuff going on that it'll probably appeal to a lot of the people that love Harry Potter. It's a good game, but when does Jersey Jack put out a game that's just a straight up turd? Like, all of their games are like okay to good at worst and okay to good also at best, which is my personal criticism with JJP. I've never played a game from them that's just been like, holy shit, like this is, a Godzilla or, a Jurassic Park.
Like the whole package, you mean? Yeah.
Right.
Well, you make me happy with what you say, because first you said it's packed at the back. I like that. I like when it's packed at the back. I like when it's flowy, so that means the first 2/3 of the playfield need to be empty to get the flow. I like that. I like that there are a lot of pathways. It's fantastic.
There's mechanical issues. The staircase broke within a week at Ace. And also there's a special switch that's kind of like It's not a full gate, but it's like a spear that detects when the ball comes in from the out lane, because the like Protego target, which is the clear target that pops up from the out lane to allow the ball to go through. It doesn't pop up every time, and it's supposed to be if it has enough speed in the out lane, it just like jumps over this gap, and immediately on the other side of the gap, there's this little spear switch that lets the game know that the ball has made it across the gap. That mechanism hasn't functioned 100% on location, but is that an Honey's problem? Probably not.
But that is concerning, and this is to my point, like now we're gonna have the reflection of those issues, which we didn't have with the content creators right now, because they're all chilling because they had the game for free.
Right, nobody's gonna say that kind of shit. If they're given the game.
Yeah, no, I know, but that's a shame though, because they're talking to an audience who's gonna have to pay 12 or 14 or 16 grand for a game. That's a lot of money. That's a small car money. You owe them the truth.
I agree.
And
I think if you're given... Sorry, go ahead. I'm just getting hyped up because I totally agree with you, and I want to talk about how much I agree with you.
We're not talking about a $150 product. People are going to put 5 freaking figure on something that's a toy. They need to know the truth. So if a mechanism is weak, it's not doing injustice to the company. Like, oh, what an asshole. No, I mean, it has to be reported. Hence, going back to the field test that we talked before, because they would know that this is a problem.
Right.
So
they should use the game that they use, like you said, to have people test it, like Carl or whatever. It should be a game that gets a hell of a lot of abuse. It shouldn't be like multiple units and they're all just kind of getting worn a little bit. It should be one game that gets rode fucking hard and like with no love. Yeah. Like it needs to get beat up and exactly find out what the issues are by players that are going to play the hell out of it.
Like Porsche takes their cars in Stuttgart and they go like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles, and they're all the conditions, and they know that car can sustain 100,000 kilometers. And that's it. Right. Oh, miles, sorry. But
I have no idea what a kilometer is. I don't know what you're talking about. Is that a type of drink? Is it a sandwich?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
I was born in England. I should know this now.
You grew up in England, did you?
Yeah.
How do you know? We'll have to. Oh my gosh, I grew up in England as well. I was in London. Oh, we'll have to talk about that.
I was Ipswich. I'm a little further north and a little more east.
We'll have things to chat about. So again, we go back to marketing 101, common sense, doing things normal. Make sure your game is test approved after hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of people beating it, and see what breaks and what doesn't break. So, gosh. But again,
you know what we need to do? We need to get a pinball manufacturer that has seen this video on the podcast and be like, what are we saying that's so simple to us that is hard on the other? Like, what's the other side of this mirror, right? Like, why can't you just do easy materials for this or that? Like, what is going on? Like, why can't this be resolved easy, and find out like what is the problem that is preventing this from happening?
So I'm going to give you one straight answer about this. They have their own agenda, and one of the items on the agenda is having to pay the bills, to pay the salaries. So they can't afford, that's what they'll tell you, to postpone a game by 2 months because they have those freaking bills. Remember that a game
legit though.
Yeah, and remember that a game takes between 1 and 2 years, more 2 than 1, to make. So it's a long project. So at some point they can't be like, oh, we need another 3 months. We'd think you and I, like, you've already been working 2 years, you can't afford another. They can't, because they're like this, they need to pay those freaking bills. And in the case of
the salt and pepper posse here on the pinball internet.
and in the case of Stern, which is obviously the biggest pinball company in the world, even Stern, they got another problem. They got a huge factory now, twice the size of their previous factory. They got more lines than they have. They have to fill those lines. And they need to get the games going. So every 3 months, they better have a game. They need to have 4 games a year. They can't be like, oh my God, my code is not ready. We need to postpone. No, dude, we got another game in 3 months. Your game goes now. Deal with it.
I don't expect a company to digest and completely change what they're doing from the ground up. But I think that even a small percentage of some of this stuff, of either communication or how they change their marketing stuff, like how they test their games, if even one of these steps was even slightly adjusted for the whatever release cycle of a game, it would benefit everyone. Yeah. Like nobody loses here.
No, of course, but then again, they have their own agenda. They have those things we're not aware of. What we know is how much a pinball machine costs, how much they're selling it, how much profit they're making. We know how much machines they make over 1 year, all these things. But at the end of the day, it comes to, you're going to sell a product mainstream, but a product that's not necessary. So you need to go the extra miles in terms of marketing and sales, because it's not like you're not selling tomatoes. We need tomatoes for your salad.
It's not food, it's not sleep, it's not transportation.
We don't need it. So you have to do something else. You have to make sure that I need it, I want it. That's why they've created this whole FOMO thing, which is kind of disappearing right now. That was a tactic, of course. But when you sabotage your own launches, whether it's through a distributor or yourself or what, it's like, why do you shoot yourself in the foot? It's already pretty complex to sell pinball machines that are expensive. Don't shoot yourself in the foot.
I think that pinball companies are missing the point that the consumer, for the most part, isn't a total idiot. And that the FOMO part is a predatory practice, and that a lot of pinball people, I think a lot of the toxicity that exists in the pinball community and that is directed at companies comes from being frustrated at being treated like that. And
true, agree.
Just if you treated your consumer with a little bit more, not respect, but whatever the nice version of that is, like, I think that would be a better approach.
And it's interesting because when you go on those pinball shows, those guys are like the friendliest people in the world. You go to Stern, you go to JJP, you go to Barrels, you go to Spooky, but they welcome you with open arms. They are obviously, I do go to trade shows and I see brands and stuff. They will not be welcoming. So there's a camaraderie, there's a friendship around pinball, and people from the inside, pinball people from the inside, working in those factories, designers and stuff, they're super approachable. They will talk to you, they will engage with you. I remember I had a chat with John Borg about the differences between X-Men and Tron, those games he made, and that he had those two games at the same year, and he had to pull something from Tron to put in the other game. And they will just say things. And then when it comes to marketing, they just close their eyes, they close their factory, like, no, we don't worry, we know better. We know better, we do our own stuff. This is just controversial, I don't get it.
It's two-faced. Why is the personality that exists at the trade show when you're forced to be face-to-face with somebody different than when you're stuck in the shit working on the game? I don't know. But again, we mentioned earlier, they want to make great games. So this isn't, I don't think they're deliberately trying to be like this.
No, they don't. And they know there's room for improvement. And I do believe they've engaged in a good way. When Stern flies people around, it's a good step. It's not enough, but it's a good step. They're starting to understand that they can use this community. They can use the social networks. They can use all these mediums they have around them to create some intensity about themselves. And they have to, because it's expensive. It's an expensive business.
Look at that. Speaking, we've manifested. We've brought in Barrels of Fun CEO has arisen. We have summoned a pinball manufacturer by speaking about it into the ether. Woo! Thank you, David, for hopping on. Maybe David would be one that would be able to come on here and talk about the 5-step process that we've come up with and what the actual challenges are that make it more difficult than us being just like, this is easy. Why doesn't everyone do this?
Yeah. So David, I don't know. Is David listening? He is. He's
here. He's in the chat right now.
So David, I don't know if you remember me, but we had this interview on the day you launched Labrynth in I think it was Texas Pinball Festival, right? And there you go. You were super welcoming, and we loved it as French pinball content creators. You have the CEO of that new company take time for us. You had so many people on the booth. You took your time. We took 20 minutes. We shot a great video. People loved it in France. And you immediately gave some amazing feedback. And people were like, wow, that's a really cool, great company. A great game, approachable CEO, very engaging. And this is how it works, and you got it right. I think you had a great launch.
Well, he says pinball's hard. Leaks are a huge problem. Ask David step 2. I'm curious what David's response is going to be to that.
To step 2.
You're trying to remember what step 2 is. I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
Step two is to not keep your IP secret of what your next project's going to be,
exactly.
or why is that being kept secret?
True. Thank you. That's actually the most important steps. I do believe there's no need to keep an IP secret. Why is that? We talked about the example of Hollywood. When they have a great movie, they announce it a year before. They tease Jurassic Park a year ahead. They tease Star Wars a year ahead. People get excited about it, and then there's nothing. You shut down for a whole year or for 6 months. Why do pinball companies, including Barrels, why do every pinball company just wants to keep their theme a secret until the days before? Why is that? Which is actually a mistake, because say your competitor launches an amazing game 2 weeks before, all the money goes to that game. And then the consumer who might have wanted your game, like, I've got empty pocket because I bought Kong before. But if you say you got Dune ahead of time, people are like, oh my gosh, it's my dream theme. It's Frank Herbert. I want Dune. Well, you can launch Kong, you can launch Harry Potter. I don't care. Dune's my dream theme. I'm keeping my money for this.
Okay, so the question is, why not announce a theme early on in its development cycle? You had mentioned because this was your idea, and I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's an interesting topic to delve into. Why are the IPs secret before actual D-Day or the weeks, months leading up to it?
To me, it doesn't make much sense. Unless your IP isn't completely secured, and then until D-Day, you need to fine-tune some details.
Sure.
Yeah, but if your contract is sealed, you got it, it's yours, just announce it. Create some attraction to your brand. Even if your game is released in 2 years, you've got that. Brilliant. Again, imagine imagine Star Wars in 18 months when you've got Kathleen Kennedy from Lucasfilm and she goes, a new Star Wars movie comes out in 18 months. Look, she said that about 10 times over the last 10 years. But every time she says that, there's a spotlight on her. Oh my gosh, a new Star Wars film's in the making. You don't need to show anything. Just say you've got it.
I mean, let's use Stern as an example for this. I'm sure David is like typing away right now. So, I mean, like, if Stern had said, yes, King Kong is Keith Elwin's next game, would it have affected sales at all? Bit different because it's not an IP. They didn't get the King Kong IP, as you know. That's true. It's based off you can tell it's based off the book because there's, one of my friends is like a film historian and came on and talked all about Kong's like licensing issues and the difference between saying King Kong versus the book stuff by naming the ship in it after the name in the book to separate it from the actual film to make sure that there's no legal issues. So.
It's a bit different with Kong, as it was a bit different with Godzilla, because those themes are not get my money now. It's not Dune, it's not Star Wars, it's not Star Trek, it's not blah, blah, blah. No, it's something we're like, okay. Remember, when we knew it was going to be Godzilla, people were like, Then we saw the pin and everybody was blown away. But when we heard that Stern was making Godzilla, I was like, that's a bit rubbish. So the theme, that's why the theme is so important. But when you have something as epic, as current as Dune, because we're talking to David right now, to me it makes all the sense in the world to tell, I've got Dune. Dune is at the movie, it's gonna be in your game room soon. Go and watch the film, it's in your game room in a bit. If you have Star Wars, say it. If you have Back to the Future, why freaking not say it? You're trying to sell your Alice game, you're trying to build some trust on your brand. If you say you've got Back to the Future, the spotlight's gonna be on your brand, and I want to know more about your brand, and maybe I'll even buy you an Alice because I'm attracted to your brand a bit more. You see, this is common sense.
We got Ian is in here too from NudgeMagazine. Man, it's a party. We've got the whole pinball sphere is a buzz. You have summoned like so many elements of the pinball world, man.
The French touch.
It's also, I remember George, Audio Enslaved says he remembers George Gomez saying that they were in late development stage on a game and it got canned. Okay, so that's a good point. Also, I think David had mentioned earlier that a title can get pulled as well. So I guess they're, announcing a title before you have anything physically to back it up, either with gameplay or any marketing elements. And you could have it pulled. And then you have to apologize because you've promised a game that's no longer coming.
No. Hang on, there's a tweak here. Let's get back to the Kathleen Kennedy example. She every 6 months she says there's a new Star Wars series or film, and whether it happens or not, they're like, okay. But the announcement is there. You don't need to promise a game. You just need to say, we have secured the IP. We're gonna make Dune, because we're talking about barrels. Doesn't mean you're making it in 6 months or in 2 years. We know that Beetlejuice is coming. I know it. I've known that Beetlejuice is coming since 2 years, okay? I even know who's been working on some little sculpts for Beetlejuice. But, all right, but nobody has actually said it. But people, every time I mention that I know Beetlejuice is coming, people get super excited because it's a dream theme for some people. Why don't a company leverage this and say, we got it, it's gonna come, we're not gonna give you a release date just yet.
As a person who works professionally in marketing, do you think that the rumor mill and hype of these like unconfirmed IPs does more for building hype around the game than flat out announcing it?
I don't think it does, because the rumor mill that you're mentioning stays within the community. So it's then within a very, very strict circle, which is not expendable. And right now, what brands are trying to do, the Sterns of the world and all the others, they're trying to expand pinball and sell to a broader spectrum. You've seen Stern giving away machines to influencers that have got nothing to do with pinball just because they have an outstanding followership of hundreds of thousands to make pinball so that pinball goes out in the wild a bit more. So
that's smart because that helps everybody. Because that breaks pinball out of the like pinball people bubble, and pinball needs to be outside of that bubble. As much as I love it being in that bubble, if in order for pinball to survive, it needs to be digested on a larger scale.
Absolutely. If we want, exactly, you said the right words. If we want it to survive, it needs to be on a. That's absolutely right. So to get to your questions about the rumor mill, it just stays within ourselves. So it's fun. I mean, it gives us things to talk about on podcasts, and we love it. I mean, come on, who doesn't love a good rumor? We just, again, I mentioned Beetlejuice, but that's something cool to talk about. And then whether it happens or not, all right, we'll see how it goes. But at least we had a good pinball chat about this.
Well, okay, but I'm getting mixed signals here then. Is the rumor developing more hype and better marketing for the game than a flat out confirmation of the announcement?
Okay, answer is no. I don't think a rumor is helping put a spotlight in the right way on a company or eventually helping sales. It just serves the rumor and the conversation. But again, the most important thing is if and when a company has secured what we call the dream theme, just plainly announce it. Say you're super proud, you're excited at what's coming next. It's going to be amazing. This is that. Watch this space for the reveal date, whenever that is. You don't have to promise something, but just say you have it. And you get people excited and proud of your brand. Again, let's get back to Pinball Brothers. Obviously now the launch is done and we've seen some things, but when they
cannot undo that gameplay video.
Won't undo it. But when they said we got Predator, people are like, whoa, that's exciting. Nicely done, Pinball Brothers. You're actually an actor to be reckoned with, because they said their magic word. They said Predator. They said what they had. A bit too late, but.
So the last thing I'll ask about that, though, is I feel like if they announce a title 6 months, a year before it's actually done, right? There's a time where people just forget, right? And some other new hotness could come to replace that. I feel that a lot of companies announce that they're making the game finally when they're ready because they have supposedly the marketing assets ready. Regardless of whether those marketing assets are any good and their launch is any good, that's a conversation we had earlier in this, and the answer is generally no to that. So do you think that part of the reason they wait to announce is because they are not ready to follow it up to continue the momentum?
I would think the reason they're not doing this is because they don't have complete control about their licensing. About how it works. Although they've secured the IP, whenever they put an item on the playfield, they have to make sure it's confirmed by the licensor. Yes. And we've seen that with James Bond and George Gomez. So they had the license for James Bond, but every time they would touch one bit on the code or something on the playfield, they always had to go to London and be like, "Are you happy with this?" And the guy was like, "No." "Oh, the mustache is not good enough. Change it." And so the schedule moves. So it's like quicksand. Then you don't really know. You got it. You have a ballpark when you want to launch it, but because of all these licenses issues and the production line and all these things, and then they got COVID and everything, quicksand. It happens and it shifts. Okay.
Sure.
So how do you do that? You want to have, again, let's go back to Hollywood. To me, it's the perfect example of how the entertainment business works. They will do a very first teaser about 6 months or a year before. Let's say Jurassic World. Then 3 months before, they will have a trailer number 1, and then trailer number 2, and that's it usually. You have teaser long time before, trailer 1, trailer 2, and then there's the movie. I think that's how you occupy the space over a certain time frame to make sure you're not being forgotten. And if you know that your film, your pinball machine is good because the theme is good, you shouldn't be worried that people are going to put their money elsewhere. Let's talk about me for 1 second. I'm a huge Back to the Future fan. If today, Dutch Pinball goes, you know what, stay tuned, Back to the Future is coming, but they don't say when. It's probably going to be roughly within 6 to 12 to 14 months, roughly. You know what? Sure. From this announcement, I promise you, Jeff, I saved the money in my pocket. I'm not buying any other pinball machine because I want Back to the Future. They can release King Kong 3, whatever, Spike, I don't care. I'm keeping my money because I freaking want Back to the Future. And I would gladly keep my money, and I would save up for it. I would save up. So I think that's how it should be done.
All right. There you go. I hope that this episode is listened and there's some feedback from some of the community that is involved in the manufacturing and marketing process. To have a discussion that goes further than just two guys who do work in the industry, you in marketing, me in post-production for trailers. Your point to teaser And 2 trailers is exactly correct. Teasers come out, at least for features, 1 year to 6 months beforehand to build the hype for it. And then between 3 to 6 months before that, trailer 1 drops, and then trailer 2 drops within 1 to 3 months before the actual film release, and then it goes out. And then they have 2 to 3 months, depending on their deal, before it goes to streaming platforms. And, I mean, like, it is designed. The process is fully designed, and there is no design around the pinball release launch now. And it should be standardized to help companies, not to help consumers. Like, I don't really give a shit. Like, my money is available and ready to buy a game that I want when it is available. It's not like if I don't have the money ready for it, if I don't have space in the house, it just doesn't matter to me. But to be given a proper kind of like release experience where I know what I'm expecting to get, I think would help a lot of consumers.
Yeah, and I will add one thing though, is that because those games are so expensive right now, we're talking 5 digits, people want to know what they're going to buy. It needs to be the complete package in your living room or in your game room or in your ceiling cellar, whatever. It needs to be the complete. So you're not just going to buy a pinball machine. Those days are over. I'm not talking about a tournament player just want a game to just have fun. I'm like that. Any game will be a good game, but for the majority of people, if they have a pinball machine, it needs to be something they're happy to look at because they can relate to it. So it means the trend slide or the back glass should be something they can acknowledge. Like let's talk about Dune. I love Dune. I've read the Frank Herbert books. My brother is a huge fan. We've talked about Dune. So I've loved the movies. I can see that on the back glass. Okay, I can see that in my house because it's something I can relate to. So that means if they announce ahead of time, few months earlier, that they're making Dune, I will definitely save up for it because I can see it in my house. People will not randomly buy a random pinball machine just because it's out there. It's too expensive to think like this.
No, for sure. And nobody should buy a game that they haven't played yet, or see it played to an extent where they can make a decision. To your point where we were talking about having somebody like Carl or the Flipping Out guys or whatever playing it. There's two relevant questions in the chat that I want to get to before they skip by. Audio Enslaved says, what happens if a Dream Theme 2 comes out when someone like Spooky Pinball Brothers says Pack of the Future is coming, but it never comes? That hasn't happened yet. No pinball company has announced a game and then pulled the plug on it. And I think it's the responsibility of the pinball company to only announce a game that they know is coming out. I mean, you're arguing or concerned about something that just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, and I don't think that's really a problem because it's a way to phrase it when you make your announcement. Rather than saying Back to the Future is coming, you can say it's coming out. You can also say we got Back to the Future, as in we got the IP. Doesn't mean that I'm actually releasing it this year. It means we got it. We've secured it. So there's a way to phrase it to create some anticipation, but not frustration. Right. So every word matter. But again,
Dr. John Only also says, sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
So Dr. John Only said also about what about competing companies and altering release dates? We talked about that earlier. There should be better communication between companies, which is not always guaranteed. We talked about Spooky changing their broadcast date to step on Barrels' stream with Carl. So not every company is going to play nice, but you do have the option to move your release date to a certain degree without fucking up the entire release timelines of production that you have going on. A few weeks or a month isn't going to make life or death decision, especially on pinball development where there's always things that can be done on a game. I mean, fuck, Jaws isn't even at 1.0 yet. Like, I imagine that they're probably going to launch the 1.0 of Jaws along with the 50th anniversary. If they didn't, I would be absolutely shocked. But that information isn't broadcasted. Why is there not an email from Stern that says, hey, 1.0 code coming soon with Jaws 50th? There's literally no reason for them not to say that. It would build even more hype and people to be more excited to talk about Jaws.
So something funny that happened last week or 2 weeks ago. A lot of people started to complain about Stern, the fact that their code are not ready, blah, 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 and actually did a post about that. And you know what? The next day, Jack Danger makes a post about, hey guys, good news, Xmen is going to be completely redone on the code side. We've got a new team. Everybody got super excited. The day after that post was deleted by Jack. And I feel like what happened is Jack obviously got super excited, wanted to share the news to the world.
Yeah.
Makes sense. But he got by George Gomez and team be like, no, that's not a corporate announcement. That's not official. So they had to make it official a few days later. It's not official. You can't use your social networks to say something that's corporate. So we're exactly in this this frame of what to say, what not to say, when to say it. But at the end of the day, this is an exciting news. And people love that Jack shared that news because he's obviously passionate about his game. We were all expecting a new code update. Why don't they let him
Why does it need to be handled like a corporate thing? Oh, I'm sorry, your shareholders are mad that your employees shared a relevant bit of information that is of a game that's already out. Like,
I'm sure he was told off. I'm sure he got told off.
Oh, I'm sure he got probably slapped on the wrist big time. But if I was Jack, I would be so pissed that, his game clearly, X-Men had the short end of the stick from the beginning of its release to what it is right now. It is great that they're giving him the opportunity to make the game what it should be. But do you think that X-Men would be getting the help it needs right now to be a great game if the community didn't cause such a fucking ruckus about how poorly, how bad the code was, how little there was to do in the game? And if people didn't make noise about that, would it be getting the update that it is getting now?
That's a very fair question, Jeff. And honestly, I don't have the answer, but it's a fair question in the sense that it turns out that these announcements about X-Men and John Wick literally came after some posts were made by a lot of people. There was this complaint. And I think at some point, probably Jack, who's a social network person, he reads those things. He probably got into a meeting and be like, look, I've printed all these things from Pinside or whatever, all these guys.
Sure.
We
need
can't
to update our game.
This isn't professional. And kudos to Stern. They made that decision for John Wick, for X-Men to get back to the game. I mean, for whatever reasons they did it, I don't know, but kudos, at least they did it. And
Stern has a history of making their games better after launch. Like that's like the Stern release cycle. Like get a new Stern a year later is like the best time to go into that. GR Young says, how many designs in the past have had license pulled mid-production or near the end? It's a fair question. I mean, look, King Kong, the original Data East one, obviously got pulled. But the reason that those got pulled, like you said, I think there's a safe way to make announcements about, hey, we have the IP. We are pursuing making a pinball machine about this. You can be excited about it. Let's say the IP people decide to take their deal away, break contract even. And now the pinball company has to explain this to consumers and it makes them look bad, even though the IP holder is the one responsible for this. How is that situation handled?
So look, there's something we haven't mentioned about this is usually an IP is, there's a time frame for an IP. You can't have an IP forever. So that gives us something else. That's like when you announce that you have an IP, you should know for a fact that that machine is actually going to come out because the company can only use it for a certain amount of months or years. Usually it's probably 2 years, 3 years, and then they have to give up the IP. Right. That's the conversation we had with George Gomez a long time ago about Lord of the Rings. There was this discussion about, is Lord of the Rings going to be remade like Vaulted and stuff? And he said something interesting. He said, look, the problem is we don't have the IP anymore. So we need to get that IP again. Plus the people who are the licensors who we negotiated with a long time ago, they're probably gone or moved on to some other pastures. So we don't know who we're talking to.
The new deal could be so much worse that they're not going to get it or they won't accept the deal anymore. So
that complicates the deal. It's not, we just take our old game and we vault it in something modern. Why did it work for Metallica? Very easy. John Borg is friend with the guys with the band. He's friend with the band. So he talked directly to the band and he's like, how about we upgrade your game? Yes, let's do it. Different deal with Lord of the Rings. So my point to this is when you're a company and you announced, and when you're a company and you announce that you're happy because you got an IP, you've secured it, we all should know that the game is going to come out because the IP is for 1, 2, 3 years, probably 2, 3 years, not 5 or 10 years. So you better make that game. And we know how much it costs. It's obvious they're going to make the game. So, you don't take too many risks saying that.
Right. Okay. I mean, all of this discussion is so fair and I'm glad that it's transparent. It's easy for us to talk about it, but I hope that like I said, I said this an hour ago, but I want to see a pinball manufacturer comment on some of this stuff. I know David was here. I don't know if he wants to chime in. I know that this is a hot topic. I would understand any pinball company being like, fuck stepping anywhere near this. Because, a pinball company, especially the smaller ones, they need to be able to establish enough capital to continue running. And the amount of pinball machines being purchased right now are less than there were in COVID. So, and there's more pinball companies than ever because people that love pinball are trying to make pinball machines. This is an ecosystem that is dangerous for smaller companies and less dangerous for companies like Stern and Jersey Jack. And we need more smaller companies because the companies like Jersey Jack and Stern aren't going to change how they treat the consumers or how they make their games quality controlled if they don't have any competition.
Yeah, that's right. But I think that all this, what we're having today is an interesting conversation because a lot of people believe that because we're talking pinball and it's a hobby that almost went away a few years ago and almost disappeared. And there aren't too many companies. Yes, there are like probably too many pinball companies, but in the grand scheme of things, we're only talking about 12 or 15 companies. People feel the need to chill everything, to say everything is great, every pinball machine is great. And when you say that a game is not good, you'll always be like, oh, you're a naysayer, oh, you're a hater. No, we love to have that chat because we're trying to improve the hobby so that it can broaden its spectrum and it can interest more people outside of it. So I just want to say this word to your audience is that whenever we say something that's not absolutely super amazingly chilly positive, it's not because we try to be mean, absolutely not. We love everybody in pinball, we do. It's because we really care about it and we think we can hopefully help in our little ways, make it a little bit better. So that's why we do it. So,
Totally.
we're trying to be as honest as possible.
I say I've been insanely critical of D&D on my stream. I think that game has mountains of problems. And every time I talk about it, I put into solutions to how to resolve the problems. If you're going to make commentary about why something is terrible, then you should have some sort of framework for why that is, and then maybe a solution for how it could be resolved. Because otherwise you're just being a big toxic piece of shit. And
you can just say it's not. This is stupid. It's ridiculous.
I'm sure if Brian or Dwight were watching the stream and they saw me talking about how unhappy and how bad the game was designed, that's probably not going to make them feel great. And the point isn't to try to make them feel bad. The point is now I'm talking about like, hey, these are weird design decisions. I would not have done this. I'm curious why it was done like that. And then maybe they can go and assign that knowledge and make it somehow better through code, right? Like you can't fix hardware or shot geometry with updates in the past. But to your point of having somebody play the game and really just like rock it hard, like Carl, to find where there are some deficiencies in it, where you're not developing or finding these because you've got your blinders on during the development process. Like pinball companies need to be open to hearing like criticism that is constructive, not criticism that is just for views, like certain personalities that have podcasts that just like to make a lot of noise. There's a big difference. One of us wants to have the game get better, and one is doing it because they want an audience to be riled up and interact, whatever, engagement.
There's something to be said about the subjectivity of a pinball playfield or playfield layout. And I'm going to use the example of a painting because you and I, we see a painting, we go to the Louvre next to my office, we look at a painting. Convenient. We won't feel the same thing about, say, painting. You will feel something, I'll probably feel something else. And there's also, there's a geometry to painting. There's a way, the colors.
You navigate your eye through it. The composition navigates your eye through it.
Absolutely. So to my point is that maybe you will see a layout a certain way, and I will see a layout a different way. Maybe something that will look like a flow to you will be like interesting to me or something like that. Of course, there's some playfields that are not good. Some are amazing. There's a pin that we both love, Twilight Zone. You and I actually adore Twilight Zone. It's an amazing layout, but for some reason, it is not the most popular, loved game of all time because it's complicated, it's complex, but also because that layout that I feel is absolutely amazing, and I could talk about it for days. Some people are like, yeah, it's not really fun, it's not that, it's that, and I can't believe they say it. And sometimes I got really offended, like, you're joking, it's probably the masterpiece of pinball. How can you? And I realized over years that it's subjective, that the way they receive the layout proposal is different. And maybe something else they will love it or feel like completely stupid or rubbish. And I'm always amazed that people love Monster Bash. Like, oh, it's amazing. I'm like, it's boring. It's definitely Attack from Mars plus Medieval Madness copied. You've put a few puppets there, they're not even nice. I don't like it. I'll never own one. I don't get why it's got this cult status. But I appreciate that some people love it. So there's a bit of like a painting. There's some subjectivity to a layout, I feel.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I think that's true, but it really is, get the criticism, get the feedback, and then as the designer, determine what about that feedback is subjective versus objective. And also what your design goals are. Just because someone is telling you your game is not ideal or great in this capacity, that the designer may want it that way, and that's their choice for sure. And just because people like me may not see the vision of what D&D was supposed to be in terms of shot flow and whatnot, like, okay, so the game's not for me, but that's okay because there's tons of games out there, and a lot of people really like D&D and are really enjoying it, and that's awesome. I'm glad that those people, if somebody played D&D and is now into pinball, mission accomplished. It's not a home game for me, but.
You know what? I think it's an amazing case study, D&D, because I've got one in the office. To be honest with you, I'm starting to get a little bit tired of it. I was probably more excited about it the first couple of weeks, but I know for a fact that this game is different in the sense that obviously it's the first role-playing pinball machine, and the code, the way they take this code, will make or break this game. Because regardless of what happens on the play field, this is a one-of-a-kind. The story happens on the screen. At a price that, for me, pinball should be under the glass, but this is a role-playing game. So the way we're going to interact with the story and the stories on the screen will make this game relevant or not. And I've been a bit disappointed over the last few weeks that the code hasn't really evolved a lot. So we're stagnating a little bit. And because the playfield is what it is, I will probably not be as harsh as yourself, but I agree it's not a masterpiece. But again, I knew from the start that game would be a hit if the code and the story brings you into the role-playing game of Dungeons and Dragons. It has the potential to, it's not there yet.
There's a concerning pattern with the recent code updates with Stern games, in my opinion, though, where the games where they are difficult in a way that is not fun, like artificially difficult, and I'll use like John Wick as an example and D&D as an example. So like the dungeon crawl in D&D, for the most part, people weren't able to play it long enough for it to like matter. Like you can't explore the dungeon layout enough for it to be fun. Whatever the shot scenarios are, you're not in it long enough for it to matter. And with John Wick, the shots are obviously like the return speed from rejected shots is so fast that the game, you drain a lot in the game, right? So Stern's solution for this is to add extra ball save to these moments. And to me, that's like a crutch. That's solving a problem in like the worst possible way.
That is lazy, super lazy. Yeah, I agree.
Is there a better solution? I don't know, but it feels like a Band-Aid to a problem that needed to be resolved either during development or with an alternative way of handling it. So like, yeah, in the dungeon crawls, they're adding 20 seconds of ball save at the beginning of it. So it's just like, what? Like that's usually like wizard mode opportunity. Like that's when you pull the like unlimited ball save out of the bag, not when your game's just like artificially hard and you're trying not to frustrate players.
I totally agree with you. It reminds me also of something a bit cheeky that Stern does a lot now, is to save some money on the kickback. Before you had a kickback on the out lane. Now they're like, okay, it's automatic, right?
Artificial
to avoid putting the kickback,
ball launch,
the ball actually drains and they launch another ball. And I think that's so cheeky. And it's not satisfying. You want to have a kickback like in Star Trek Next Gen with the left out lane and the ball goes back on the playfield. No, the ball now drains and gets shot back on the playfield from the right side. And they're like, come on, just to save up $5. This is rubbish.
Yep. You know, a game does have a ball save that launches the ball back on the left side. Dune.
All right.
Because I'm a shill.
Yeah, but no. Look, I haven't played Dune yet, but I played Labrynth, and I played it with David on D-Day. What impressed me with this game, Labrynth, is that, how can I put that into words? There was no compromise. You had the skulls, you had the torch, you had the ramps, you had it was like, it was all there. You had a world on the glass. And again, this is the first thing you see is, am I attracted to it? Yes, because it's a freaking world on the glass. You like that a company makes no compromises. And unfortunately, Stern's business model has to be about compromises because it's 3 to 4 games a year, because it's that big factory, it's like 3,500 employees or whatever, there has to be compromise. So they will pull the kickback, and that sucks. What I don't want to see is JJP pulling back on things. JJP should be the Ferrari of pinball. It should be.
Yeah.
JJP.
Sorry, go ahead. Well, either Reghead or Ian was talking about how Stern is a business, meaning like business. It's not, and that's a really different thing. Even more so than Seth has joined from Disney. I think it's from Disney. He's bringing his corporate values of Disney to make it an even more profitable business. It is a business. The guy that they got from Vivendi as well. There's DLC coming to Stern in the near future.
Oh, yeah.
With the Vivendi guy acquisition. I mean, that guy that guy tanked like Volition. That guy tanked like 2 or 3 companies in the game industry just through the process of doing like monetization and bringing in like partnerships with like smaller like video game brands and stuff like that. I'm worried about the future of Stern's monetization and financial stuff, but that's speculation. I don't want to put fucking bad vibes in the pinball ecosphere. We'll see. Right now, Insider Connect is a harmless addition to hunt for achievements, but the writing is on the wall for new hires for what Stern's like business future is going to be.
I was one of the most, I criticized the Insider a lot when it came out, and I'm actually chill on that because I can see where it's going. Obviously, we knew the DLC were going to come out, but now I can see an interesting pattern that they could use for DLCs. Imagine you got your game.
David's peacing out.
Imagine
he said thanks.
Bye, David. Thank you for being on board with us. Imagine you got your Stern Star Wars for a few years, and you're like, all right, I love it, Star Wars, blah, blah, blah. And then Stern comes out with the DLC. You have to pay an extra $249, and you have like 5 or 4 new missions. Would you do that? I would. Because it's like
if there's value to it, like I buy expansion packs for video games, and you can think of an expansion pack as kind of like a really giant DLC thing. But there's a difference between getting like look at the dumb horse armor that came out for Oblivion back when that first happened. When Bethesda Interactive released the first like predatory DLC business practice of charging $50 or $60 for gold armor for your horse as a cosmetic item, that's bad. That is horrible. Predatory business practice. It's based off FOMO, but that's the problem. What other company is basing their business model on FOMO? The companies that do that are the companies that pursue DLC monetization. It's just that's right. Flat out. But then, you look at other companies like the Baldur's Gate 3, the Labrynth Studios, right? They are unlimited, free patches for everything except for the major expansion packs, which add a substantial amount of content to the game that you are given the choice to purchase. That has value to me. So
yeah. But look, on purpose, let's get back to that Star Wars example. The game was released in 2017, so it's 8 years old. Say Dwight Sullivan is like, you know what? I'm keen to get back on that game and create a couple more wither modes. I'm like, yeah, you need to pay for it because he's not obliged to do that, and you don't have to. But say you love your Star Wars machine, but it's sat in your game room for years, and it's the same old Star Wars, and you're like, I can have a couple more wizard modes because Dwight put some effort. I'm keen to pay $200-300 more because right now those people who will complain about this, they still pay their toppers $2,000 or $3,000 and no problem with that. For a piece of shit, that costs like $79.
And look at what the toppers are doing right now. You have to buy the topper to get an unlocked character in D&D. You have to buy the topper to unlock a specific mode in Jaws. That's $1,000 DLC.
And I hate that because us in France, we don't have as big houses as you got in the US. Like for me, my game room, I've got 6 or 7 games. I don't have enough space on top of it to put a topper. I can't.
Same.
So I would be left for that. I hate that.
Yep. But I'm sure you can probably buy it for a small cost through Insider Connect. Coming soon.
So that's why I'm chilling a little bit on the Insider Connected, because I know that the future is ahead and you can't stop it. The DLC will be coming. But if it's valuable upgrades, packages that adds to the game experience, or for a game that's been left out for a few years can have another life thanks to new missions, honestly, I would pay for it. Imagine Twilight Zone, you had an Insider, you're like, you know what, Jeff? It's been 30 years with Twilight Zone, but we've added 5 new missions for $249 thanks to the Insider. Do you want to download them? Come on, we would do that. We'd love to have 5 more missions on Twilight Zone.
Here, this is what I want to see from Insider Connect, right? I would pay $6 a month, whatever it is, to have the data's in the game. I would pay to see average scores based on graph, where my drains were over time, like if it was the left out lane, the right out lane, center drains, which shots I hit more than ever, which shots I was having problems hit. If I was getting legitimate metric feedback that was presented in a nice UI in a graphic way that I could actually digest to be able to do better at it. No, I'm talking about $6 for the platform itself, not per game. Joe's like saying $6 per game. No way. But I think that there is a place for a small amount of pay to get something back from it, but that's legitimate. You're paying for something, right?
That's the whole point. You need to get something in return that's valuable and tangible and relevant. You don't want to pay for bullshit. I don't want to pay to have Insider just to get ads on my pinball machine about the upcoming game. That's cool, but that's not relevant. That doesn't bring me anything.
Do you think paying $1,000 for a topper and getting an unlocked character or a unique game mode is value?
No, it's not. Obviously, it's not. But the problem is for guys like us, because we love our game so much, I'm like, oh my gosh, would I do it? Yes. Is it stupid? Totally. It's totally stupid. But I'm stupid,
but
and I
if
would
you do
do
that,
it.
then it doesn't force them to change their business model.
And they won't. Of course they won't. Have you seen the latest light toppers, or whatever they call it?
Oh yeah, they're flat, like stern billboard ones. I saw it.
It probably cost them $20 to $30, and they sell it for $300 or $400.
Oh yeah, it's plexiglass and a small LED strip. It's ridiculous.
An Xbox or a PlayStation, come on, plus a plastic. This is a ripoff. So this is where I'm like, in terms of marketing, of course it's working, so they're doing it, but they should take a step back and be like, if we really want to be in this business long term, like long term, for something that's unnecessary, we need to treat this thing properly. There's something that are worthy of a certain price. You can't have people pay $500 or $300 for a piece of plastic. This is not how it should be done.
I totally agree. But that's why I like vote with your money. Of course, there's some games that are just so fun that you want to have them in your house, but I don't know. I've said before that I am absolutely a shill for smaller companies. I said that before the whole working with barrels thing started. But if the smaller companies aren't supported that are legitimately trying to give value to pinball, whereas other companies that are already established and aren't afraid of being damaged by the pinball market dipping if it does, you need to support smaller companies that are making good products. It's that simple.
I think Spooky and their Evil Dead is a great example because they finally, I believe, came into their own with the last few games. But apparently, that Evil Dead game, everybody is unanimously saying it's a fantastic game. It's great. It's a white body. There's everything in it. There's all the toys, and there's the underplay feel and everything. So good on them. That's great. We need that.
Yeah, Evil Dead's a great game. It's super fun, and there's code coming. They added 2 wizard modes. I mean, there's a lot in that game.
But then, Jeff, would you have an Evil Dead in your game room?
I would buy an Evil Dead, sure.
Okay.
I don't have space for another game right now. Well, as soon as I get rid of my D&D, maybe. But the problem with that is that you can't buy an Evil Dead. They only made 500 or whatever, which is wild that they sold out of a game. And I don't know if it's their IP holder isn't allowing them to making more. Did they have a limitation in the contract for how many they could manufacture, or they were worried about pinball? What's that?
I think they have a range with every new game. They have a certain figure they're trying to achieve, and when they get it, it should step up a little bit with the next game. So good on them, because now there's going to be FOMO for their next game, especially if it's a great great IP like Evil Dead. People are like, okay, we missed out on Evil Dead. We can't just do that again. So they probably will sell 600 or something like that. Oh
no, Spooky's going down the FOMO world now. This company 3 into the world of FOMO.
But it's an exciting business. It's great.
Yeah, the last couple of Spooky games have been really great. So I'm excited to see what Beetlejuice has in store. I'm excited to play Predator. I don't know if I'm sold on the gameplay video and how it seems to play. People are shitting all over that game and nobody's actually touched it yet, which is just, I get that there's a bunch of armchair warriors on Pinside and Reddit that want to just obliterate a game's potential before it even comes out. I'm worried. I don't know how amazing it really looks compared to some other titles that are coming out. But, I'm going to play it first, and then we can have a different conversation at that point.
Exactly. That's right.
So, all right. We're pushing on 2 hours. This is a long one. This has been an awesome conversation, man. I really feel that, if nothing comes of this, this has been just absolutely amazing to just, workshop, think tank, the whole industry as a whole. You're obviously been involved in this for so long and so knowledgeable on this topic, especially with your actual business and professional experience. I thank you so much for taking the time to be on here. Chat, do you have any questions while we do our outro?
But thanks to you, Jeff. Always a pleasure, and obviously I love to have pinball conversations, especially when they're marketing pinball discussions. A little bit on the side of while we talk pinball normally, but I absolutely love it. So thanks for having me.
I hope we can. We'll do it again when there's more pinball news.
Anytime, man.
Drag you back on here. All right, chat. Last chance. Any questions? Did we touch on announcing titles in advance? Yes, we did. That was that was step 2 talking about whether companies should just come out and say what they're making. But now we need to have a pinball company person on here that's going to actually talk about why they don't do that and give some honest reasons why. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that the secrecy and the concern of bad feedback is too. Pinball companies are too afraid of saying the wrong thing because it's a fine line between being in business and not in business as a pinball company.
That's right. I agree with that.
All right. It doesn't look like we have any questions. All right. Well, we're going to do what we normally do. We go find someone who's small to raid and drop a bunch of people on them and totally make their day. Thank you, everybody who has been in the chat. And of course, the alarm goes off for the fucking ads. Oh, thank you, Johnny. That's a very good point. Johnny, I appreciate that. Guillaume, I got to ask you a very important question. We were talking about Stern. They've been doing a lot of remakes, and I've just been thinking about a lot of potential games that could be coming out from the future of Stern. And I'm just curious, out of these 3 games, which you feel would be kind of the best step forward for Stern as a remake. The first game, it's Raven. Second game, I think that would be an interesting remake, would be Raven. And the third game, if they brought it to market, Raven.
I mean, it's a tough one, but I would think Raven.
All right, Stern, you heard it.
I would go with Raven. Yeah, would be amazing. Dream come true. Dream thing, like
the remake from a totally different company.
Yeah, no, I've got goosebumps just thinking about Raven being remade. Is just that's one of those things you just hope in life. But
right, so this is the market research that needs to be done. People don't, the pinball, peeps don't get that this is the desired theme for the next remake, right?
Yeah, but no, fair question. Isn't Raven the worst game of all time, or is it not? Honestly, it's in the contest for it. I don't think it is though, but it's in the top 5, top 10.
What did Carl said? What, Thunderbirds? I think was his.
That is bad. Probably Blues Brothers.
Oh yeah, but that's. I mean that. Home Pin. We're not going to talk about Home Pin.
That is probably worse.
I just can't.
Thunderbirds is medieval madness compared to Blues Brothers.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. All right. While I go dig and find someone to raid, can you tell everybody what your top 3 pins are? You don't have to say Raven. This is a legit question.
Like my favorite pins?
Yes.
Is the question?
Absolutely.
Addams Family, Twilight Zone, and Star Trek Next Generation.
Awesome. Star Trek Next Generation is going to be the next game I'm streaming, by the way. Anybody interested in that, stop by. It's going to happen because it's literally 6 feet away from me. I got to the final frontier for the first time yesterday. I'm pretty happy about that.
That's cool. That's good. I mean, I love Star Trek, but it was not necessarily a dream theme. But I think that machine is absolutely outstanding. There's so much creativity, inventivity, mechanisms, secret pathways underneath the playfield. That was an eye opener when I got that. So it's in my top 3. And
I bounced off it hard.
It is. It's actually. I do want an Indiana Jones. It's much more difficult than It's more complex than Indiana Jones. So I prefer it to Indy.
Well, it's harder to get to the upper playfield. Because, Indiana Jones has all this shit in the way, but, Next Generation is like completely open.
Doesn't shoot as well as Star Trek. But, Adams and Twilight Zone will be my top 2 forever. You can't debunk them from their top 2 spots. It's just so Pat Lauder forever, man. He's the best.
What was his last game?
It was Toy Story 4.
I wonder what's coming. I wonder what's coming from him from Jersey Jack. I'm surprised that they put Eric on.
Oh, he's retired. He's
fully retired.
Yeah, he's retired. Yeah, that's it. That was his last game. And I got to interview Pat Lauder in his office at Jersey Jack's probably a month and a half before Toy Story 4 would come out. So we didn't know it was Toy Story 4, obviously. And I remember when I shook his hand, he looked at me and be like, "Wait for my next game. He's going to be quite something." And to be honest with you, I was a bit disappointed because being such a Pat Lauder fan, I thought he would throw everything in the kitchen thing too. You know what? He did like the Elton John, Steve Ritchie thing. He took all these good things, put it all together, and it's Toy Story 4, so it was a bit of disappointment. So I thought for a final game for the Master Chief that he is, little bit of disappointment. So, I'll stick to Adams and Twilight Zone as my favorite Palador games.
I mean, he has a legacy of amazing games to enjoy outside of Toy Story 4.
That's right.
Is there, of course, I forgot to ask, is there anything that is going on with Paris Pinball Addict that you want to plug? Interviews, information, news stories, anything going on that you'd like to throw out? Please do.
Well, thanks, Jeff. We have a great following community in France. Obviously, we do our things in French, but I've got the Instagram account, which is international, of course, and now Facebook translates every post. So you feel free to come and join the gang on Paris Pinball Addicts. And I do go to the shows twice a year to the US, Texas Pinball Festival and Pinball Expo. So would love to meet you guys there if we haven't met yet.
I'll be there, and we're gonna have a pint over it.
We will, Jeff.
Let's see who's on the raid boat. Let's do it. We got to raid Joe. I convinced Joe to get into pinball, and he is renting a 007 and is trying to find a Godzilla to purchase. But he's just a nice guy and has been streaming constantly now that he's obsessed with pinball. And how could I not raid someone who's just caught the bug,
Right, that's for sure.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jeff.